The rain hammered down on the roof of the old Honda Civic like it was trying to break through. Cain Ramirez shivered in the back seat, his thin blanket barely keeping out the chill that seeped into his bones. At 23, he had imagined his life after college would involve a decent apartment, a steady job, and maybe even someone to share it with. Instead, 6 months after he came out to his parents, he was parked in a deserted lot on the outskirts of Los Angeles, surviving on gas station food and the kindness of strangers who sometimes let him use their Wi-Fi. His phone buzzed with a low battery warning. Another rejection email from a job application. He closed his eyes, trying to block out the sound of the storm and the deeper ache of loneliness that had become his constant companion. Then headlights cut through the darkness. A sleek black SUV pulled up beside him. Cain tensed, ready to drive away if it was trouble. The driver's door opened. A tall man in an expensive coat stepped out, umbrella in hand, and knocked on the Civic's window. "Cain? Kid, it's me. Uncle Richard." Cain's heart stopped. Richard Thompson, his mother's older brother, the tech billionaire who had drifted from the family years ago after a falling out with Cain's father. Cain rolled down the window a crack, rain splashing in. "Uncle Richard? How did you find me?" Richard's face, lined with concern under the streetlight, softened. "An old friend of mine works at the shelter downtown. He recognized your car from a description your mom let slip. I've been looking for you for weeks. Come on. Get out of this damn rain." Cain hesitated. Pride warred with exhaustion. "I'm fine. I don't need charity." "This isn't charity. Your family. And no one in this family is sleeping in a car on my watch." Richard's voice was firm but gentle, the same tone he used when Cain was a kid and needed someone to stand up to his strict father. After a long silence, Cain grabbed his backpack and the few clothes he owned. He locked the Civic and climbed into the warm SUV. The leather seats felt like heaven. As they drove away, the wipers swishing rhythmically, Richard glanced over. "Tell me everything." The words poured out. How his parents had reacted with horror when he told them he was gay. His father's shouting, his mother's tears and prayers. The ultimatum, change or leave. The nights in the car, the fear, the shame that still lingered even though he knew he had done nothing wrong. Richard listened without interrupting, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. When Cain finished, Richard spoke quietly. "Your dad and I stopped talking years ago because I wouldn't stay silent about how he treated people who were different. I wish I had fought harder for you sooner. But you're not alone anymore." They pulled through the gates of a sprawling estate in Beverly Hills. The mansion glowed softly against the night sky. Cain stared, speechless. Richard showed him to a guest suite larger than any apartment Cain had ever lived in. Fresh towels, a king bed, clothes in the closet that looked new. "Sleep. We'll talk more in the morning. You're safe here." Cain lay in the dark, the sheets cool and clean against his skin. For the first time in months, he cried, not from despair, but from a fragile, terrifying relief. He didn't know what price this kindness would demand, but right now, the storm outside felt farther away than ever. The next morning, sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a manicured garden and infinity pool. Cain found Richard in the sunlit kitchen, flipping eggs with surprising ease for a man worth hundreds of millions. "Morning. Coffee's ready. How'd you sleep?" "Like I was dead. This place, it's unreal." Richard slid a plate across the marble island. "It's just a house. What matters is you're here. I've already called a mechanic to tow your car over. We'll get it fixed. And I want you to come work at my company. Start in marketing. You studied that in college, right? No special treatment. Just a chance to prove yourself." Cain stared at his plate. Gratitude swelled, but so did doubt. "Why are you doing this? We barely saw each other after I was 12. Richard set down his mug. "Because when my sister, your mom, married your father, I watched them turn rigid and judgmental. I lost touch with her because of it. I'm not losing you too. Family isn't supposed to throw you away for being who you are. They spent the day talking. Richard shared stories of building Thompson Tech from a garage startup. Kane opened up about the quiet pain of hiding crushes in high school, the relief of finally saying the words out loud, and the devastation that followed. By evening, Kane felt lighter, though the scars remained. That night, alone in his room, Kane whispered to himself, "Maybe this is real," but deep down, he wondered how long the warmth would last before the world reminded him of his place. The first week at Thompson Tech felt like stepping into another universe. Kane's new office had a view of downtown Los Angeles. Colleagues greeted him politely, unaware of his connection to the CEO. Richard kept his promise, no favoritism. Kane started at the bottom, learning the ropes in the marketing department. He threw himself into the work, designing campaigns, sitting in on meetings, staying late to prove he belonged. The structure gave him purpose he had lost on the streets. Evenings, he and Richard shared quiet dinners on the terrace. Richard never pushed, but he listened when Kane talked about the nights he had spent scared and hungry. One Friday, Richard suggested they attend a company happy hour at a rooftop bar in WeHo. "It's good for networking, and you might meet people who understand what you're going through." The bar buzzed with energy. Rainbow flags fluttered nearby. Kane felt both excited and nervous. His first time in a space where being gay wasn't something to hide. He nursed a soda, watching groups laugh and flirt. Then he saw him, a young man with warm brown skin, curly hair, and an easy smile, sketching on a napkin while chatting with coworkers. Their eyes met. The man waved him over. "New face. I'm Ethan Rivera, graphic design. You must be Kane from marketing." They shook hands. Ethan's grip was firm, his eyes kind. "Heard you just started. How's the transition?" Kane shrugged, smiling. "Overwhelming, but better than my last address." Ethan raised an eyebrow but didn't pry. Instead, he launched into funny stories about disastrous client pitches. Kane laughed for the first time in what felt like forever. The conversation flowed effortlessly. Shared love of indie films, late-night tacos, and the quiet courage it took to live authentically in a city that could be both accepting and cruel. Richard watched from across the bar, a small smile on his face, but said nothing when they left. Over the next weeks, Ethan and Kane grabbed lunch together. Simple things. Walks in Griffith Park, coffee runs, conversations that stretched late into the night over text. Ethan had come out in college and lost a few friends, but his own family had eventually come around. "It gets better," he told Kane one evening as they sat on the mansion's balcony. "Not perfect, but better. You don't have to carry it alone." Kane felt something stir, attraction mixed with fear. He hadn't let himself hope for this kind of connection since his parents' rejection. "I'm still figuring out how to trust it won't disappear." Ethan nodded. "Then we take it slow. No pressure." Meanwhile, at home, Richard encouraged Kane to see a therapist. The sessions were hard. Kane confronted the voice in his head that still whispered he was broken. Richard shared fragments of his own past, how he had lost close friends to the AIDS crisis in the 80s and vowed never to let fear dictate family again. One night, Kane received a text from his mother. "Your father and I heard you're with Richard. Come home. We can fix this if you try." The message felt like a trap wrapped in hope. He showed it to Richard. "Don't answer yet," Richard advised. "You're healing. They need to meet you where you are now, not where they want you to be." Kane deleted the message, but the guilt lingered. He was building a new life, yet the old one still pulled at him. At work, his first campaign pitch succeeded. Richard clapped him on the back in private. "Proud of you, kid." For the first time, Kane believed he might actually deserve it. But as weeks turned to months, the fragile peace began to crack. A distant cousin posted family photos online, tagging Kane at the mansion. The comments were vicious. Whispers reached his parents. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. "Kenny Ander, what are you doing at your uncle's house?" His father's voice was ice. Living with that man after what he did to this family? You come home right now and stop this nonsense. Kane's hands shook. Dad, I'm happy here. I'm working. I'm being myself. You're throwing your life away. That lifestyle is a sin. Richard is filling your head with lies. The argument escalated. Kane hung up, heart racing. When he told Richard, the older man's face darkened. They don't get to decide your worth anymore. That evening, Ethan came over for dinner. The three of them talked openly. Ethan's calm presence grounded Kane. As they said goodnight at the door, Ethan brushed Kane's hand. You're stronger than you think. I'm here. Kane watched him drive away, a quiet warmth blooming despite the storm clouds gathering from his past. The relationship with Ethan deepened slowly, like sunlight warming cold ground. They went on real dates now. Dinner at a quiet Italian place in Silver Lake, a hike in the hills where they talked about dreams and fears. Kane loved how Ethan listened without judgment, how his laugh made the heavy weight on Kane's chest feel lighter. One weekend, they drove to Malibu. Sitting on the beach as waves crashed, Ethan turned to him. I know your family stuff is complicated, but you deserve love that doesn't come with conditions. Kane leaned in, and their first kiss was gentle, tentative, full of promise. No rush, no pressure, just two men finding safety in each other. Later, back at the mansion, Richard saw them holding hands in the kitchen and simply smiled. Good for you both. Work flourished too. Kane's ideas impressed the team. He and Ethan collaborated on a campaign targeting younger demographics, their chemistry translating into creative magic. Colleagues noticed the closeness but kept it professional. Yet the external pressure mounted. Kane's mother started calling daily, alternating between tears and anger. Your father is sick over this. The church is praying for you. Richard is using you to get back at us. Kane tried to explain his growth, the therapy, the job. She refused to hear it. If you stay there, with that man and whoever you're seeing, we can't support you anymore. The rejection stung fresh every time. Kane found himself withdrawing at home, replaying childhood memories of church picnics and family vacations before everything fractured. Richard noticed. One evening, after a tense call, he sat Kane down. I never told you the full story. Your father and I fought because I defended a gay colleague who was being harassed. Your dad called me weak, said I was destroying the family name. I walked away to protect my peace. But I always regretted not fighting harder for my sister. For you. That's why I'm here now. Not to replace your parents, but to give you what they won't. Kane cried that night, the kind of deep, cleansing tears that come after years of holding back. Ethan came over and held him without words. Their bond grew stronger. They cooked together, watched old movies, shared vulnerabilities. Ethan admitted his own struggles with body image and belonging as a Latino gay man in tech. Kane opened up about the shame that still haunted him in quiet moments. But peace never lasts in stories like theirs. A family reunion invitation arrived, neutral on the surface, but Kane knew it was a test. His parents would be there. Richard advised caution. Only go if you're ready, and I'll go with you. Kane declined the invite, but the decision haunted him. At work, rumors spread after someone saw him and Ethan together. A conservative investor complained to Richard about the company image. Richard shut it down firmly. My company values talent and character. End of discussion. Still, the tension built. Kane began questioning if his new life was sustainable or just borrowed time. One night, after a beautiful date with Ethan, he lay awake wondering how much more his fragile heart could take before it broke again. The breaking point arrived on a humid August afternoon. Kane was in a strategy meeting when his phone vibrated repeatedly. Messages from his aunt, his father's sister, warning that his parents were driving to Beverly Hills. They're coming to bring you home. This has gone too far. Panic surged. Kane excused himself and called Richard, who was in San Francisco for business. They're on their way. I don't know what to do. Stay calm. I'm catching the next flight back. Don't let them inside if you're not ready. But they arrived before Richard could return. Cain stood on the mansion steps as his parents' familiar minivan pulled up. His mother looked thinner, eyes red from crying. His father's face was stone. "Caniander, enough of this rebellion," his father said. "Pack your things. We're your real family." Cain's voice trembled but held. "This is my home now. Uncle Richard gave me a chance when you threw me away." His mother reached for him. "We were scared. The Bible also says to love your neighbor," Cain countered, the word surprising even him. Therapy had armed him with more than tears. The argument spilled into the foyer. His father accused Richard of corrupting Cain and turning him against God and family. His mother pleaded. Cain stood his ground, heart pounding, but inside he felt the old fear clawing back. Ethan arrived unexpectedly, sensing something was wrong from Cain's texts. Seeing the confrontation, he stepped beside Cain quietly. That single act ignited everything. "Who is this?" his father demanded. "My boyfriend," Cain said clearly. The silence was deafening. His father's face twisted in disgust. "This is what Richard taught you? Sin upon sin." Words flew like knives. Accusations of betrayal, selfishness, and damnation. Cain's mother sobbed. In the chaos, Cain saw clearly how deeply the divide ran. Not just about sexuality, but about control, pride, and unexamined beliefs. Richard's car finally screeched into the driveway. He stepped out, calm but authoritative. "This is my property. You will not harass my nephew here." The standoff ended with his parents leaving, but not before his father delivered a final blow. "If you choose this life, you're dead to us." Cain collapsed on the couch afterward, Ethan and Richard on either side. The support helped, but the wound was deep. That night, he and Ethan talked until dawn. Ethan shared his own family's painful journey to acceptance. "It took years. Some never get there. But you have people who choose you every day." Still doubt gnawed. Was he selfish for choosing himself? The social media backlash from distant relatives labeling him ungrateful only amplified the noise. Richard pulled strings quietly to shield Cain at work, but the emotional toll showed. Cain began missing deadlines, withdrawing from Ethan. The once bright future felt shadowed by the cost of freedom. The true betrayal came from within the family. Cain's aunt, the one who had warned him, had been feeding information to his parents all along. She arrived at the mansion one evening unannounced, claiming concern, but her real purpose was to guilt Cain into returning. "You're tearing this family apart," she said over coffee Richard reluctantly offered. "Your uncle is using you as a pawn in his old grudge. And this relationship, it's destroying your mother's health." Cain listened, stunned. When she left, he checked his phone. Screenshots circulated in family group chats, private photos of him and Ethan, twisted narratives claiming Richard had groomed him. Fury and hurt collided. Ethan was devastated when the rumors reached his own conservative extended family. Work became tense as whispers spread. Richard confronted his sister, Cain's mother, directly over the phone, but the damage was done. In a heated late-night argument, Cain turned on Richard for the first time. "Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm just causing pain everywhere I go." Richard's voice cracked. "I lost my own partner decades ago because the world wasn't kind to men like us. I stayed silent then. I won't now. You are not the problem. Their fear is." The confession stunned Cain. Richard had carried his own secret pain quietly all these years. The climax erupted at a company gala. Cain's parents showed up uninvited, tipped off by the aunt. In front of investors and colleagues, his father denounced Richard and Cain publicly, calling the company immoral. Security escorted them out, but the scandal made local news. Stock dipped slightly. Ethan faced harassment at his apartment. Cain felt the full weight of every choice. In the aftermath, alone with Ethan on the balcony, Cain broke down. I don't know if I can keep fighting them. Ethan held him. Then stop fighting them. Fight for us. For the life you're building. Richard joined them later, offering to step back if it helped. But Cain saw the sacrifice in his eyes and refused. You gave me a home when I had none. Now I choose to stand. The betrayal forced a painful clarity. Cain cut contact with the aunt and most of the extended family. The price was steep, permanent estrangement from his parents, but for the first time he felt he was choosing from strength, not fear. Months later, the leaves in the mansion garden turned gold. Cain stood on the same balcony where so many tears had fallen, now holding Ethan's hand as they watched the sunset. Therapy continued. Work thrived again. The scandal had faded, replaced by quiet respect for how Richard and Cain had handled it. Richard had quietly donated to LGBTQ youth shelters and become more open about his own history. The family he chose, Cain, Ethan, and a few loyal friends, gathered for small dinners filled with laughter instead of dread. Cain visited his parents one final time, alone. The meeting was brief and heartbreaking. They offered conditional love if he repented. He declined, leaving with dignity and closure. Driving back, he realized the uncle who found him in a car had not just given him shelter. He had given him the courage to build his own life. That evening, the three men shared a meal. Richard raised a glass to choosing love, even when it costs everything. Cain looked at Ethan, then at the man who had changed his world. The pain remained, but so did hope. In the end, Cain had learned that family is not always blood. It is the people who see you, accept you, and stand beside you when the world turns away. Was the uncle right to step in so forcefully and reshape his nephew's life? Or did his intervention ultimately destroy any chance of genuine reconciliation with the rest of the family?